Our next storyteller, Meghan is the Senior Director of Peer and Wellness Services at Cascadia Behavioral Healthcare. She's on the faculty of Portland State University, where she trains peer wellness specialists. She's also the Clinical Director at Oregon Health and Science University Psychiatry Department and the Vice Chair of the Oregon Health Authority Traditional Health Worker Commission. As a painter, her work has been featured in museums and galleries in California, Texas, and Oregon. She is currently represented by the J. Pepin Art Gallery in Portland. Meghan's passion for her work comes from having been hospitalized over 100 times and finding the ability to recover and thrive despite a psychiatric diagnosis. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Meghan Kahi.
Thank you. So, art is the highest form of hope. Again, art is the highest form of hope. Now, why am I saying that? Gayatri just said I'm a painter. Okay. So, I'm going to explain this a little bit in more detail. When I was 19, I was away at school for the first time, and I was going to study art. And I was sitting in an art history class in an auditorium bigger than this one. I was way up in the back. They were showing slides of all the famous art. But I started hearing a voice, actually voices, saying how bad I was and saying terrible things to me. And I ran out of the auditorium, but it didn't stop. And it went on for days, and I was going across the campus, and a student was walking towards me, and I looked at her face, and she looked like a giant insect. It was awful. Eventually, when I was outside in the snow coming down without shoes or coats, some of the other students took me to the student health center. And I spent there about 3 days on very heavy-duty medication. This was 40 years ago, so, you know, Thorazine, really heavy-duty medication. And then I saw the psychiatrist, and he said, "You have schizophrenia." And I just remember he had nose hair, and his eyebrows stuck up like this, and it was like his eyes were bloodshot. And I thought, he's not very smart. But anyway, that was my diagnosis, and it did sound like a death sentence. And so that was 40 years ago. So as Gayatri mentioned, I've been hospitalized a whole lot. So over the next 30 years, I was going in and out of the hospital, and my quality of life got really severely terrible. And I started making attempts on my life. And over, I would take pills. I would wash it down with a half bottle of wine. The EMTs would come rescue me, take me to the hospital, back and forth, back and forth. I knew that there was going to come a time when the EMTs and the sheriff did not get to me in time, and I would succeed in killing myself. Now, how I went from there to the next step is beyond what I can tell you about right now, but what I want you to hear is that in the middle of all that, I got in touch with my will to live, with the life force inside me. I had been cultivating it all my life, I think, in small bits, but I found it. And my paintings had been always very painful, and I put all my emotions in my paintings, and they were black and agonizing figures. But I went to my studio, took a brush of cadmium red paint, and just started painting lotuses. Now, why a lotus? Okay, here's your trivia for tonight. A lotus is a beautiful flower, and they have so much life force that if you take 40 of them and hook them up to a certain electrical apparatus, thank you. If you hook them up to a certain electrical apparatus, it will actually be enough juice to illuminate a light bulb, and that's a plant. So that's part of why I love the lotuses. When I'm doing paintings of lotuses, it's wonderful to paint the flower part, but the really interesting part is the background, which is actually the mud. Lotuses have to have mud to bloom and thrive. They can't do it just, like other plants, they have to have this organic, sticky, gooey mud. And isn't that like our lives? That's like my life. Now when I'm training peer wellness specialists, I say, be like the lotus, sink your roots down into the mud of your lives, and that is how you will bloom and grow. So the lotus is a powerful metaphor, and this is tonight a lot about hope. But let me just say, there are times when hope can be in short supply. I'm being very honest about that. It's been like that kind of for me sometimes lately. And what I want to do is tell you about what to do when hope is in short supply. First of all, I had a friend recently tell me when we were talking about hope and courage, she said, you can have hope. If you're building a fire, hope is the kindling that you put on the bottom, and then courage is the match that you ignite that and build the fire with. And that's very, I think that makes sense. But sometimes hope is very hard to find. And I just want to tell you a different story. It's not even a story, it's just about a plant that I saw when I was out walking a few days ago in my neighborhood. My service dog is up in the back, and she's here with me tonight. But I was walking her like I do every morning, and going along down the sidewalk, and there in the middle of the cement, this tiny, wee little purple and yellow violet. How it got there, I have no idea. It didn't have the things that plants normally need to grow. It didn't have soil, it didn't have whatever it needed, but it was there blooming for me that morning. I don't know if it was blooming for me, but I saw it, I celebrated it, and that little flower has courage. That is courage. And so with that image, I'd like to close, but I just want to say, may we all support each other through hope, and may we all have courage. Thank you.
Love you. Love you. Thank you, Meghan. I agree with you. Like the lotus, out of the muddy waters of our life, we can rise into beautiful blossoms. Oftentimes, the diagnosis of schizophrenia is met with fear and despair. Meghan is the living proof that our diagnosis does not need to define us or deter us from living a life of meaning and purpose. Meghan is an advisor to the board of ASHA International and a member of the ASHA Storytellers team. She wants to inspire people living with mental health conditions to rediscover their life force and create lives of meaning and purpose.